Welcome everyone to This Week in Svelte, episode 141. And sorry for being late, by the way. I have to be I lied. I actually forgot. I was busy doing other stuff and I didn't realize that was already 28. So I was waiting, I was still knowingly waiting for starting this episode, but just didn't realize the time was there. Alright, today we also have just the changelog. I am looking for something. I'm pretty sure that sooner or later I'll have Stanislav on, because I was looking at one of his projects and it's a massive project. Pretty interesting, so we'll definitely have Stanislav on. But until we find something to showcase, let's jump right into the changelog. We can see Svelte 5.55.8 4 days ago. Fix print handles Svelte body and fix keyframe percentage double printing. So this should just be it's actually the for printing. So there was an issue with printing. If you remember, basically printing is recently Svelte shipped with its own print for the AST, which means that you can do stuff like this. Like you can have from Svelte compiler, and then you can do print. And basically, if you pass an AST to print, it will actually print something. So obviously it has to be a Svelte AST, so it has to have this like this shape basically. So it has to have a fragment, and the fragment generally should have a type fragment on top. And then nodes, I think this should be the minimum required. Nope. Cannot read properties of undefined. Yeah, okay, so that's the bit. I guess maybe you still need to have the rest. Yeah, probably. Like you still need to have CSS and JS. I guess instance should be maybe comments to, because instance I don't think you need to have an instance, right? Maybe. No, I don't think you have to have an instance. Like if I remove everything, yeah, it looks like this. Oh, it's type root. Oh, I need to have a type root then. Then maybe I don't need the rest. What's going on? Sorry. Yeah, I don't think. sorry guys, I'm trying to figure out what's the minimal shape for this. Let me try this. So if I do this, I copy everything, I Command Z. I do this, I need to put a comma after everything. I need to remove this fragment. Maybe I said fragment instead of... Yeah, that's the minimum. I guess maybe I had, yeah, I think maybe I had something missing. I'm sorry guys, I'm just playing at this point. But basically, this print, let me JSON.stringify it just to show you what it returns. It returns this, like the code is empty and then there is the map. We don't need the map, so let's just do print .code, and then that's it. Like it's empty because this is actually an empty element, right? But you can add stuff like you can add a type text, I think, value is equal something. Let me check. I can't remember. Blah, blah, blah. Here's the output. Fragment, nodes, text, row, and data. Okay, row, data, something. Now, if I did everything correctly, yeah, this should basically just print something. And the reason why it prints something is because it's the Svelte component that has just a node, which is a text node. And this can be a bunch of stuff, like you can have a regular element, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, being regular element, it means that it does not have a row and data, but has something like name, b. And then you can have attributes, if I'm not mistaken. Reading type. I can't remember what's the ST, so let's do B, fragment, regular element, attributes, fragment. So it does need a fragment, maybe. Fragment, an empty fragment. Cannot read properly. It would be nice if it was like more. I think maybe we need a text node anyway before. Nah, I don't think so. But basically, what I'm trying to do is just showing you the, so regular element, type, regular element, start and name, attributes and fragment. Does it need a lock? I don't think it needs, right? Does it need start and end? I'll be there, guys. Sorry. Fragment. Oh, maybe type fragment anyway. I'm hating on this. Let's start 0 and 5. That's not it. Okay, you know what? I'm tired. Parse, I think. Yeah, let me also print parse b/b. Boink. And JSON does stringify this. Oh, it's children? Oh no, because this is the modern. I need the modern true. Yeah. This is the modern AST. So it's root, CSS, blah, 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 blah. If I copy all of this and I paste the old one and then I replace all of this with what I copied, yeah, this will print B basically. Now I'm not sure why it was not printing, because like root, fragment, type fragment, nodes, type regular element, maybe namelock it's required. Like if I remove namelock, what am I doing? Okay, let's do one thing at a time. Sorry guys. Now, at this point it's a personal thing. And all of this is just to show you the basic of print. But I want you to see how it looks, how the AST looks like, and name B, namelock. Fragment options. Oh, maybe because like it needed a fragment anyway, and it had to be that. Not sure. Let's say that I remove namelock. Is still printing. That's good. Still printing. If I remove the fragment, will it print? Come on. Okay, if I remove the fragment, yeah, this is the fragment. Let's say that I want to remove the fragment. Why it's up? Oh, because there is an extra one here. Okay. So let's say that I remove the fragment. Okay, that's it. It has to have a fragment, and obviously it has to have a type fragment and amount of nodes. Regardless, so the point is, so start and end are optional. Start and end optional. Attributes technically I think is optional. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Okay, we have it. So like this is the bare minimum thing. So as you can see, basically, like this is a Svelte component which has a fragment. The fragment has a series of nodes. One of the node is a regular element with the name B, a series of attributes, and the fragment with type fragment and a series of nodes. Now, obviously, if for example I copy this and I put this inside nodes, you will see that there is a B inside a B. If I change the name to strong, there is a strong instead of a B. I can add an attribute. I can't remember. Is equal. Let's do just A. Can't remember what's the regular element attributes. So it's an attribute, name, and value. Yeah. So you can add an attribute with type, attribute, name, very cool, and value Now I can do true, and this will just print very cool. I can also do true, and this will print, it will not print true. Okay. I think it has an expression probably. Like if I do this, it probably has regular element, attributes, value. Okay, value is a text. Okay, so like it cannot be, because obviously it can also be an expression. So instead of value like this can be type text, and actually I think it needs to be this data is equal cool, and now we actually have this. And the reason why it has to have an array, and the reason why it has to be an element instead of just a string, is because obviously this can also be an expression, because you can add variables inside, right? So all of this to say, you have the print function that can do this sort of stuff. Obviously you will never write an AST by hand, but what you would do generally is, like I did, is parse a Svelte component. Then you can manipulate the AST. So like instead of doing something by string, by regex, for example, you can actually just go into the AST, manipulate something, like change every instance of B to strong, and that will update your Svelte component. However, there was a problem with percentages, specifically in CSS and in Svelte body. And so now it is fixed. So all of this for the first element. So are you happy? Fix, execute an uninitialized derived even if it's destroyed. So I guess the point is, basically deriveds are lazy right now, right? So basically, even if you have a function, if it's not even if you have a derived, right? If it's never used, initially it is uninitialized. Now I'm not sure why this would help. Derived first read in out transition returns uninitialized. Yeah, there are a few unavoidable cases where we have to execute the derived even if we otherwise wouldn't because of its lazy nature. So let's see, this bug, derived first read. Yeah, basically if you have a derived and you read that derived initially inside an out transition, it still returns uninitialized. So you read it for the first time inside an out transition, and since you are reading that, but the out transition means that the element is already being destroyed, I guess it's in a weird state where it's still uninitialized and it's not executed because it's being destroyed. Like it's already being destroyed because the element is being destroyed and everything that's read there is being destroyed. But so yeah, you have to execute it even if it's already, like it's marked as destroyed, but since you are reading it, we need to execute it. That's very trippy. Okay, use name symbol everywhere. So this is something about, I think there was an issue about this, specifically this one, where it is. Move Svelte runtime properties to symbols, and a few of those were just normal symbols. This is fine at the end of the day, like a symbol is a symbol, but in terms of debuggability, if you don't know what you are looking for is much harder. So just to show you, and I don't know if you ever interacted with this construct, but basically what I can do is I can say, like, I don't know, my symbol, and then I can do symbol like this. And now if I do console log my symbol, you will see that in the console you see symbol. Maybe I need to zoom in a bit. So in the console I see, maybe I should change something. In the console you see symbol, which is fine. Now, if you've never interacted with a symbol, what a symbol is a unique value. The moment I do this, this constant can only be, like, it's only it's only my symbol equal to my symbol is only true if you are comparing these two variables. Those, like this kind of stuff, it's usually used either when you want to have some sort of private property, because you can use symbols in an object. So I can do const object is equal, and I can use my symbol is equal to secret value. Now, basically what this means is that if someone wants to read this secret value from the object, it has to have a reference to my symbol. If it doesn't have a reference to my symbol, there is no way for you to read that value. Now, what this means, like, this was basically used so that, let's say that you have a function, create secret object, like this. What you could do is that you can create the symbol inside the function, you can create the object inside the function, and then you can return the object. And now what this means is that you, like, nobody can read this value anymore, basically. In reality, what is mostly used for is when you have something in a module. So let's say that I have symbol.js. I can create, oh, come on, shut up. I can create a symbol, unique is equal symbol, like this, inside the module, and I'm not exporting it. So nobody has access to this except me, that I'm inside this, this module. So I can say export function get object, like this, and this will return an object with unique is equal to secret, right? Now this means that if someone gets this object, they cannot in any way read this secret. But what I can use it instead, I can say something like get secret, like this, and now I can return to you, like, you can pass me the object, and I will return object at unique. So by doing this, I'm basically making sure that you, if you want to read the secret, have to go through this get secret, basically. And symbols are very useful, as I've said. However, as you've seen in the console, if you have a symbol like this, it will show up as a symbol normally, but you can also add secret like this. And this will basically not change anything if not for the fact that in the console you now have, if I do this, you now have symbol secret. So it's much nicer in terms of debuggability. You can see that this is the symbol for secret. And by the way, even if you create another symbol with the same string, these two symbols are still two different things. Like, they do not equate to each other. So symbol secret is equal to symbol secret will return false every time. So a small excursus in the world of symbols, which is, in my opinion, a very underrated and nice feature of JS. I mean, this is just to use named symbol everywhere. So in the Svelte code base, we use a lot of symbols, and now they are named so that it's easier to debug. Don't run teardown effect when derived are unfreezed. Now this, it's something very, very like, there is a weird situation basically right now. The problem is, and let me open the playground once again. So in Svelte, the props are lazy, right? They are basically getter. So if I do this and I do $sign props like this, and I do, I don't know, object, I can do $sign effect, and I can console.log object.something, right? And then maybe I return and I do console.log object.something. And if I have TypeScript, lang is equal to TypeScript, I can also type this object to say, hey, object needs to be at record of string. Actually, let's do like object needs to be something string, right? So as far as TypeScript is concerned, this object must be defined when it's inside this component. However, what can happen is that, let's say that I do this, something like this, and then I import the component, from component.svelte, like this, and then I mount the component, and I pass obj is equal to name. Obviously, if we take a look at this, we can see that word, everything is fine. Let me do mount, unmount, right? So we are, in this case, we are unmounting because every time we type something, it's unmounting the old component. So we are unmounting the component, the old component, and then mounting the new component. However, let's imagine that this can actually be undefined. So I have a button here, and I can actually say that onClick name is equal to undefined, right? So with a click, what I can do, it's nullify. I can nullify the component. Now, obviously, this is a problem because the moment I nullify the component, I get a type error. Hey, cannot read properties of undefined, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, TypeScript will complain here, so I can just do if name /if, right? Everything works fine now. The problem is that we actually changed this behavior. So in an old version of Svelte, like we received a lot of complaints about this because in an old version of Svelte, what can happen is that if you nullify the component, what happens is that if name becomes false, then the component starts to unmount. But then when the component unmounts, the component reads object.something. And by reading object.something, this object is actually now. So it would actually error out in the same way. I can't remember when we changed this behavior, but let's say that I switch back to, I don't know, let's go back to 5.20, and this might, yeah, you see, like in 5.20, we still had this behavior, and now, even if TypeScript is absolutely correct that object should not be defined, we still get this error. So we changed the behavior so that basically now inside the return value of an effect, you will get the same value you had at the beginning of the effect. So once you run an effect, you read a value, and the value will not change in the return value. So it will be the same value, which is kind of what you would expect. However, obviously, there are a lot of people that did not expect this, especially like one of the issue with this behavior right now is that if you update the value inside the return value, it will not update. So if I do object.something is equal to pupa, like this, if I nullify, I don't know, this is actually working. I can't remember. Basically, there is a weird behavior where inside the return value you cannot read the by default, by design, you cannot read the updated value of something, and this is causing some problems. So we are figuring out what we want to do, and so basically right now what happens is that during teardown, deriveds are actually unfreezed. So that's something that will happen. So that it fixed some bugs. This also caused some other bugs that we are working on fixing, and also we need to figure out the whole situation. So bear with us for a moment until we figure out, because this is actually a problem, like the same problem. It's also like you can have the same problem in Solid, for example, in Vue. Like this is inherently one of the issues with signals. So it's a bit of an annoying bit. A lot of frameworks have the same problems, and we need to figure out the best way to do it. Unset context synchronously in run. So run is just a function that we use internally to mimic the old behavior of the label statement, and it was unsetting the context asynchronously, and now it's setting synchronously. Then we have a new release. Fix don't unset batch when calling await promise. So inside the await, we obviously call the promise that you pass as the argument, and the batch was being unset, and that's wrong because obviously, I mean, you are still inside the batch. The batching system, as I've said multiple times, is basically what allows for async Svelte to work, and it's very complex, and it's basically like a huge class that help deal with situations where you have multiple asynchronous works going in parallel, and some of them can be interleaved. Fix promisify await expression on the server and correctly hydrate them on the client. So I don't know why you would do that, but you can technically do await, like the old await block, and then await the promise inside here. I guess some people, I mean, like it could make sense. Maybe that promise is returning another promise and you want to I don't know, do something. I don't know, but you can do it, and like it's legal to do it, and so now it works correctly on the server and on the client. The duplicate dependencies that are added outside the init update cycle. Okay, so basically, if there is some dependency, I assume to a signal, two other bugs. The way we handle await was flayed around SSR hydration. When reading a dependency after an await expression, which we add to the current reaction, we did not deduplicate those reads. That can lead to duplicate dependency, which in turn lead to bug when remove reaction later run. Consider this: you have deps count, unrelated count. Now you do remove reaction deps 1, remove all reaction after the first one. That means that the disconnected this from each other logic run from count 2 because it's also in the third position, but that is wrong. So basically what can happen if you are if you don't know about signals, basically how signals work is that every time you read a signal, we keep track, we add that signal to an array of the dependency of the derived or the effect. So when you read the signal, there is a current active reaction, and we say, okay, add this signal, add myself to the array of dependency of this specific reaction. And what would happen is that if you were doing something asynchronously like this, we were adding the dependency, then after the dependency, like the asynchronous work completed, it would be added once again. And that meant that the dependency, like this array should be deduplicated. So we have code in check, like we have code in the process that checks only add this dependency if it's not already there. We could use a set, but this is faster. Like it's actually more memory efficient and faster to do this like this. And so that's why we do this with an array. And now it's also fixed. Avoid false positive batch invariant error. The invariant I talked a bit about in a previous episode, but basically invariant is a function that just basically throw, and we sprinkle that throughout the code base when we have some assumption. So to declare in code that, hey, if we reach this point, this array should be empty. We cannot actually we don't check, the code must execute anyway. But if we have an assumption, we basically through an invariant, and this say if that assumption that we have is not true, then it should throw. And this means that when you run your code, it will throw an error, and you can open an issue on Svelte, and we can verify, okay, that's where the issue is. Inline primitive constants in attribute value during SSR. So we are back at this, that's nice. So basically, if you have a primitive constant value, so something that will not change and it will not, it can't change, and it's a primitive, so it cannot even be mutated, then we basically just inline that as an attribute in SSR. Sorry, just 1 second. And I was muted. Sorry, I'm back. So yeah, that's nice. It's a nice addition because this way, it's literally inlined, and you don't have to read the value during SSR. So it's a small thing, but it is. We don't have any new release for SvelteKit. We have a new release of Acorn TypeScript, which is use user provider Acorn copy for TS plugin. So if you want, I don't know if you want or you need to install Acorn for the TS plugin. Support namespace declaration merging. I'm not sure what this does. Let's see. So this is valid TypeScript. Okay, so basically this, you can actually do this in TypeScript. You can export a namespace called name, and then you can declare const name with the same behavior, and this was throwing an error in Acorn TypeScript, and now it is not anymore. We have a new release of Svelte.js OpenCode. We actually had, so this was my fault. When I created the sub-agent for OpenCode, I set a bunch of permissions that I thought it was fine. So like I said, yeah, the subagent should just write a Svelte component, should not execute batch. However, obviously, as a good agent, the subagent, what was doing is, okay, let me write the component. Okay, let me run Svelte check, for example. And this basically meant that if you were using the subagent, you were getting a bunch of like permissions in OpenCode, which basically meant that you couldn't, I can talk. You couldn't leave your OpenCode running, because if it was using the subagent, it would ask you for permission. So right now, basically what it does is that it always allows tools from the MCP. So like inside the subagent, it will call the Svelte MCP regardless, without asking you for permission. But that's the only override that we add. So by default, it will inherit your configuration, so that if you want it to be restrictive, it will be restrictive. If you want it to be available, it will be available. By the way, I'm not sure how long the OpenCode caches the packages. If you want to make sure to update your OpenCode config, what you can do is you can, let me open a new one. What you can do is that you can say OpenCode plugin at svelte.js/OpenCode, and then you can force it, and you need to specify the version, so 0.1.9 in this case, 0.1.9. So if you do this, this will force OpenCode to install the plugin. You need to specify the version. I don't know why. If you say latest, it will like invoke the wrong one basically, and say, hey, this is not a valid plugin. I'm not sure why. But basically you can do this, and if you force it, it will actually update your config and install the right version of OpenCode. And this will do it for the local project. If you want to do it globally, you can do the -G, and it will update your global config. So make sure to do this if you want to actually update. I think I'll need to add this to the plugin documentation, because it's something that I always find a bit annoying, the fact that like I don't know when the plugin will update. But regardless, let's see. We have 2 new releases of Prettier plugin Svelte, and it should be a major release. So we have 2 major releases. There are a few breaking changes, like require Svelte 5. So if you now want to update to the latest version of Prettier plugin Svelte, you need to use Svelte 5. There is also remove Svelte bracket new line option, so you cannot add this Svelte bracket new line option anymore. You cannot add Svelte strict mode option, and then fix keep trailing and region comments below Svelte option in script and styles. So there has been this. Also, most importantly, there was a fix for how to print at const. And I think we also, like right now, it's also using provenance. So before it was basically published without provenance. If you know, like NPM security right now, it's a mess. So we said, okay, we are solidifying the whole suite of repo in the Svelte repo. So that like we can be more secure, and we shouldn't get pwned, hopefully. It's not an invite to pwn us. And we don't have any other release, so that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else to say. And thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. I hope you learned something. And I'll see you guys next Friday. Next Friday will actually be I need to move the appointment at 3 p.m. because next Friday is also my engineers meeting, and we're gonna talk about the future of Svelte. So I need to be there. Okay, thank you very much. And I'll see you guys next Friday. Bye.